Good morning. Most of you will know that my name is Margaret and that I'm married to the Reverend Mel Durrant, who has contributed to many of these thoughts for the day. We're relatively newcomers to Bexhill as we moved here at the beginning of May in 2018 when Mel retired as priest in charge of Sixpenny Handley with Gussie, St Andrew and Pentridge. Now there's names to conjure with. For 12 years we lived in the quaintly named village of Sixpenny Handley in northeast Dorset. The name apparently is of Saxon origin and has to do with being on a hill, and nothing to do with sixpences at all, although the older road signs in the area do have the abbreviation of 60H, as in old money, and the local preschool was called Little Pennies. Gussie, St Andrew and Pentridge are the other two villages in the benefice. So, how did we end up in Bexhill? Well, I'd lived in Dorset since I was 11, and Mel came to Dorset to teach in his 20s at the same school I was teaching in, and that's how we met. The rest, as they say, is history. When it came time to thinking about where to retire to, our daughter Anna said, "Why don't you come to Bexhill?" Up until that point, it hadn't occurred to us to even consider the idea, but we did, and here we are. As you know, big changes are not always easy, and house moves to an unknown part of the country are apparently considered top of the stress tables along with death and divorce. But for us, it was a very good move. We have been made so welcome at St Peter's. We have made many friends and we love the area. We thought we'd got it all sorted and were more than coping with changes of pace of life, etc. What could be better? Well, not being diagnosed with breast cancer in July 2019. That definitely wasn't in the retirement plan. A change I could do without, and the least said about almost a year of very unpleasant treatment, the better. Except that the changes that were forced upon me weren't all bad, nor are my memories of that time. We felt surrounded by love and prayer and safe in the hands of the outstanding NHS doctors and nurses. Even going for chemotherapy was a good experience, well, on the day itself and before the side effects kicked in, because the staff at Conquest Hospital are so wonderful and caring. Then, of course, there's been another huge change which has affected all of us. COVID-19 has changed our world and our lives in ways none of us would have believed possible before it happened. It was, and still is, for many people a dreadful experience, bringing suffering, bereavement, loneliness and financial difficulties. But it also brought time and space for those living in the fast lane to reassess their lifestyles and reminded all of us of the importance of our families and other relationships and of looking after each other and our world. The book of Ecclesiastes in the Old Testament is perhaps one of the less well known, and the author, who might or might not be King Solomon, is reflecting towards the end of his life, taking stock of the world as he has experienced it between the horizons of birth and death. The whole book is worth looking up and reading, especially if the changes forced upon you are troubling you, but here is probably the best known passage. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones and a time to gather them. A time to embrace and a time to refrain. Now, is that social distancing in the Old Testament? A time to search and a time to give up. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to mend. A time to be silent and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and the time for peace. Some of those suggestions may seem a bit alien to us, and they do have to be read in the context of the Old Testament. But how about that for a list of challenges to think about and relate to 2021? Just as in any other year, we don't know what is ahead, although this year we do go into the new year with quite an agenda, and I won't start on Brexit and the rumoured changes that will bring. For the writer of Ecclesiastes, the world is seen as being full of enigmas, the greatest of which is man himself. He sees that human wisdom has limits and that we should be patient and enjoy life as God gives it. Do patience and change sit comfortably in the same sentence? Having cancer forced me into reconsidering much of what I thought I'd got all sewn up, including my perspective on life and death, particularly my own. But I haven't got all the answers. It's still a work in progress, but I do look to 2021 with a quiet heart. Well, usually, and with me that's probably the best I can hope for. You may have heard of the Serenity Prayer. There are a number of slightly different versions of it which will come up if you Google Serenity Prayer. However, this original version seems to sum up my meandering thoughts, so I will close with it. Thank you for listening. Father, give us courage to change what must be altered, serenity to accept what cannot be helped, and the insight to know the one from the other. Amen.